Really what matters is week one, and all the talk is about Terry McLaurin. And, you know, Ron gave kind of an iffy answer and said something like, for the most part, the MRI looked good.
Yeah.
For the most part, there's nothing there. Well, Adam Schefter was a little more, cautious. And he tweeted yesterday, while Washington has expressed optimism about the status of Terry McLaurin, who suffered a turf toe injury on Monday night, the Commanders' wide receiver is uncertain for the regular season opener versus the Cardinals, per sources. McLaurin will work to be ready for the start of the season, but it's too early to say whether it will be. His injury typically is a multiple week injuries, and there is some time. I think, what are we, about 16 days away or so?
Yeah.
But Valdez and I were talking about it during the break. If he's not like 85, 90%, and you got to, get a handle from the doctors whether or not playing has a chance to really re-injure it, I would hold him out. Not because you think necessarily you're guaranteed to beat the Cardinals. No, we could easily lose the Cardinals.
Right.
But you just need him for as many games as possible.
Right. You go to Dotson and Samuel, say, look, you guys are going to have a heavier load this week. Some of the younger, De'Ami Brown, you're going to
This is
run
your
more
moment,
routes.
buddy.
This is your opportunity, because it seems like there are two really scary injuries, especially for wideouts. One is turf toe. Two is a hamstring. Because you see guys try to come back from a hamstring. They rely on explosion, and then they re-injure the hamstring, and then they're shelved for multiple weeks. I mean, Jerry Jeudy just went down with a hammy injury yesterday in a joint practice.
He's going to be out for a couple months probably.
Yeah, he's going to be out multiple weeks.
Yeah.
Because teams
that kills them.
Teams know that you can't come back from a hamstring strain, especially if you're a wideout, in 1 or 2 weeks. Like, it needs sufficient time to heal. So hopefully Terry's on the mend, and hopefully he's able to play week one, but might be week 2 or later.
Here's a scary anecdote. In the Bleacher Report article, they talk about Jordan Reed, who also had turf toe injuries. And, of course, he was forced to retire after suffering multiple concussions. But he said that those stemmed in part from a lack of agility caused by the turf toe. So, in other words, by putting yourself out there and playing, you might be able to get through it, but maybe you're making yourself more vulnerable to other injuries.
I would attribute it more to, I can't remember the dude's name on the Falcons, who just, with a wicked, almost head-hunting type of hit on him, I want to say it might have been even in a preseason game. I can't quite remember, but like that dude, it was an egregious hit on Jordan Reed. And I think that was like the final one that he was like, I can't keep sustaining these hits.
Although didn't he go to San Francisco? Where did he go?
Yeah.
He went to San Francisco to play a little bit.
Okay.
A little bit.
Yeah.
The David
But
Fleming,
he was never the same, like you said.
From ESPN, also reporting about turf toe injuries. Apparently is reporting that several players have suffered knee, hip, and ankle problems because they overcompensate for the turf toe, which causes pain anytime pressure is placed on the foot. So they really have to be careful here. We don't want to expose them, needlessly to extra injury, to exacerbate the injury. I would not be on an all-in for week one road a la RG3.
If I'm Coach Bieniemy, I'm going to pull Gibby into the office. Sorry, Gibby, again. I can't stop using the nickname you hate. Say, hey, we're going to target you 6 or 7 times today because Terry McLaurin's not playing. He's not going. Right. Everybody's going to have an elevated role. You're going to have to pick up the slack. And luckily, they have enough depth, I think, to sideline Terry for a week or two, and you'll be okay. Hopefully, it's not longer term than that.
Now, we're getting close to Cutdown Day, Tuesday, August 29th. I believe we also have a tea time that day. All 32 NFL teams must trim their rosters to 53 players by 4 p.m. Tuesday, August 29th. I'll be just walking off 18 when all these guys are getting the bad news. Oh, brutal. They're saying, and I didn't realize this is the first year the NFL, and it's funny now that you think about it, they're only doing one cutdown day. They're not going
they used to do
185
right.
to 75 to 53.
Right.
It's all on one day, and Ron Rivera says he's happy with the rule change. He says, I think it's an excellent idea. I'm really glad they did that because what it does for us is we'll be able to hold some guys out specifically. We also know that we have enough guys to get through that last game and have a good game. It's always been the case and the concern that the last game isn't the type of game that I think that people really want to come see. Now we're able to keep a bigger number of guys. And so, anyway, I guess that's good for fans. Also, having one cutdown day allows some players the opportunity to press teams one last time before final cuts cakes.
Right.
So there are some names that are on the bubble. I'm stealing this from Brian Manning's article. 10 guys he thinks are on the bubble. Now, here's what's interesting. With the expanded practice squads, I think a lot of these guys are going to end up somewhere in the organization, okay? But they might be cut. But I think they'll be brought back. I think Jake Fromm is a classic example. I think they'll let him go. I think nobody will pick him up, and I think they'll stash him on the practice squad.
Yeah. I can't believe that there would be some sort of rush to pick up Jake Fromm.
I don't think anybody will.
He was released.
I think Jared Patterson also he's a kind of heart and soul guy who, when given the opportunity, tends to perform.
I actually think if he were exposed, some team that's looking for a cheap, relatively young running back option would be like, we like that guy. We like what he brings to the table.
Maybe.
Didn't he score in the Raven game?
He either scored or he had a big first down. Everybody went crazy.
He scored.
He might have. He always performs when given the opportunity. So I don't know. I think if he's going to be in the organization somehow. They've cut him a bunch of times and bring him back.
There's a lot of talk about the Ravens doing that with your boy, Keaton Mitchell.
Well, I would snatch him up.
They're afraid that if they cut him, that he will get snatched up quickly.
He jumps off at you.
Because he's jumped off on tape.
His speed pops.
Another guy, Jason's boy, Jonathan Williams, who, again, they love. He's been a part of this roster off and on since 2020. Again, he and Jared Patterson, these guys could be getting bad news, but then the next day be told, just sit by your phone, we're going to bring you back if nobody picks you up.
Yep.
Dax Milne, another one. It's interesting. I heard J.P. Finley the other day talking about Dax. I think it was J.P. out on his podcast, and he said, listen, Dax Milne has had a quiet, awesome camp. Catches everything they throw him. They trust him completely. He's not obviously going to break anything in the return game, but they trust him to catch the ball, and that's their number one priority. And they like the way he runs his routes, and he's a good, backup receiver. So if they let him go, he's another one, almost like your boy Troy Apke, who just keeps finding his way back in the organization.
I think Milne will make the team.
Yeah. Mitchell
Based on
Tinsley.
No,
what he's
Apke's
saying.
different this year because he's going to be out till November with the injury.
Yeah.
Which sucks.
Mitchell Tinsley is going to find his way somewhere. If he's not on the main roster, I think he'll certainly be on the practice squad. He's another one, though, that could get snatched up because the reporting on him has been good. And let me see if there's any other names that jump out at you. KJ Henry, the guy that we had on the show, right?
Nice guy.
5th-round draft picks.
Nice kid.
Typically, those kids all make it. There's just been very little buzz about him. The guy everyone's talking about is the 7th rounder, Andre Jones, who apparently has kind of worked his way onto the roster.
He impressed while Chase Young was out with the stinger.
So it's funny. This team, they're very protective of their draft picks. If you look at it over the last few years, they don't like to cut guys that they draft. So maybe they will.
I mean, unless he was just absolutely terrible, I would think that he at least makes the roster for a year, and they'll see if they can develop him.
Right.
That's what this team likes to do.
Yeah.
If you look
They
at
don't like to give up on their draft picks.
If you look at ESPN.com, they did a breakdown of every draft pick. I think it's over right around 250 draft picks. But they turn to each insider from each of the teams to break it down, and they give a grade for each of the draft picks. It's not really a grade, just kind of a description. And for KJ Henry, John Keim, who did it for ESPN, he just writes, he's fighting for a roster spot as a backup end. Henry's shown power when engaging tackles, but at this point, it's hard to imagine him playing much, barring injuries.
Is he playing special teams at all? I guess not at the end.
It's a good question. But anyway, you know what? I need to find it. Because I'll be honest with you, I don't have it right in front of me. What time is that
6.
game? At 6 p.m.
The Commander game, 6
Yeah.
o'clock.
6 o'clock.
6 o'clock on Saturday. Correct.
Right. So I'll lock in. I'll watch. At least they got the full roster they could go to. But I don't think anybody with a serious role on this football team is going to be playing.
You better have the roster in front of you to try to ID some of the guys who are out of the field.
Right. I think we're going to see a lot of Jared Patterson.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? A lot of the backup receivers.
And you're going to see Brissett for probably the first half.
It's interesting. Be like, Heineke only took, 2 passes?
Right.
And they got him out of there.
They got him out of
but
there,
Brissett, they're going to expose?
Well, we'll see. See for how long.
Yeah.
I would assume Fromm's going to play majority of the game.
Right.
Because they don't have any other quarterbacks in camp, right? It's just Fromm.
We got a lot of Commanders stuff that we're going to hit on later. Of course, we're going to get into Ron again, talking about how he feels really comfortable right now. He says, we got a guy. When talking about quarterbacks, first time it sounds like it's the first time he's felt really comfortable going in. Now, obviously, it could blow up in his face, but we'll get into that. And then later, we'll also get into Dan Orlovsky, who put an interesting tweet out yesterday and breaking down Sam Howell. He was very complimentary of Howell, but he also said, I think we all know this, that if he doesn't figure out that sack issue and figure out how to ID these blitzers, that he's going to be facing blitzes all day long until they figure it out.
Better adjust. You better adapt.